Good evening and welcome. You are watching the big story on NDTV Profit, and we've got an exclusive access to an FIR that has been filed by the CBI against the NGO Oxfam India. Now, it's not just this one NGO. We have also accessed similar documents against other NGOs. Now, this, of course, follows the Indian Express newspaper that had reported that the Income Tax Department found that a network of NGOs, including Oxfam India, were using foreign funds and had collaborated with foreign entities to stall projects by the Adani Group. NDTV Profit followed the money to find out how each of these NGOs were connected and how foreign funds were being misused to target Indian corporate houses. Now, to begin with, we are going to go across to Shrimi Chaudhary, who's joining in with a detailed report on what the Income Tax Department's findings have been.
Yeah, so it all started with the Income Tax Department search action against all these 5 NGOs in September 2022 over misutilization of foreign funds which they have received over 5 years. So during the course of investigation, the Income Tax Department has found that these NGOs were influenced to run negative campaign and even execute negative campaign against Adani Group and CISSD Group, and trying to sort of stall their coal and thermal plant specifically. In fact, one of the NGOs, Oxfam, is in touch with its Australian arm to sort of stop mining of Adani Group and in fact work towards delisting the Adani port. So the interesting finding have been so far, and in fact they're also suggesting that the president of one of the NGOs is also the shareholder on the another one, which clearly indicated the concerted efforts by one person or a group of individuals against these conglomerates. So what happened now is that investigation so far is concluded, though we are trying to get some more detail on the investigation, but the license under the FCRA regulation has been cancelled. The matter is in Delhi High Court, and investigation is still on, is what we are learned from our sources in the Income Tax Department.
All right, Shrimi, thank you very much for that. Now, let's in fact go across to Sandhya Ravishankar, who's also joining us this evening in the studio. Hi, Sandhya. Now, Sandhya, we are going to come to you basically to understand how these 2 foreign NGOs continue to route funds to smaller entities to follow certain agenda, despite their FCRA license actually being cancelled. So explain to us how these NGOs managed to follow their agendas despite obviously censure.
All right, Nupur, to explain this, I'm going to have to take you through an exclusive copy of the FIR filed by the CBI, which is now looking into the cases, in fact, of a bunch of NGOs who have flouted FCRA norms. Now, we are speaking specifically about Oxfam India. Now, the FIR, in fact, raises a very crucial question, and I quote, "This exposed Oxfam India as a probable instrument of foreign policy of foreign organizations or entities which have funded Oxfam India liberally over the years." Now, that is a very damning statement. Now, let's take a quick look at the number of violations that have been committed by Oxfam India as per the CBI FIR, which NDTV Profit has exclusively accessed. The number 1 is routing funds through other means despite FCRA registration having been cancelled. Now, if you take a look at your screen, you will be able to see the total income of Oxfam India over the years. It runs into crores. It's a mega NGO, and 75% of its funding comes from abroad. Now, the FIR also states that Oxfam India and its employees appear to be supporting agitational activities, and this ties in really well with what Shrimi said just before about how these NGOs are funding smaller NGOs who are in turn funding protests against groups like the Adanis and JSW Steel. Now, this is called sub-granting, and Oxfam was sub-granting funds to a number of smaller NGOs so that they could carry out the dirty work of organizing protests. Now, this is, of course, illegal under the FCRA Act. You cannot sub-grant funds to other NGOs. Now, I'm also going to show you an excerpt of an email, or rather an agreement between Oxfam and another NGO called Environics Trust. In this, you will see that Oxfam India had funded this trust to mobilize communities with the help of local unions against the coal industries. And this is one of the NGOs that have been found to be fomenting protests against the Adani Group. Now, Nupur, you asked about how exactly this actually happens. So the second point in the CBI FIR details how they create a new structure to continue funding NGOs while bypassing FCRA laws. So a sort of arm's length approach was created to bypass these FCRA laws, and you're looking at that on your screen. So once Oxfam India lost FCRA approval, it had no access to foreign funds. It handpicked NGOs and told its foreign funders that they could then fund these NGOs. And these NGOs in turn would be, very pliant, ready to receive funding, and they would go out and do the dirty work that Oxfam actually wanted to do.
And when we talk of dirty work, Sandhya, there's another person who, often finds a mention in this. And I'm going to read out a statement of his. This is George Soros. He's the well-known hedge fund investor. And he made a statement in the run-up to the election saying Modi and business tycoon, and we're going to play out that quote for our viewers right now. So this is what he said, and I quote him. He said, Modi and business tycoon Adani are close allies. Their fate is intertwined. Adani Enterprises tried to raise funds in the stock market but failed. Adani is accused of stock manipulation and his stock collapsed like a house of cards. Modi is silent on the subject, but he will have to answer questions from foreign investors and in Parliament. This has significantly weakened Modi's stranglehold of India's federal government and opened the door to push much-needed institutional reforms. I may be naive, but I expect a democratic revival in India. Sandhya, I want to come to you on this one as well. Tell us who this man is. What has his past been like, and what is his link to these NGOs?
Well, he used the words democratic revival, but in effect, I think he meant regime change, because he's known the world over as a regime change agent. So he's a Hungarian-born businessman. He lives in New York, a billionaire hedge fund investor. He is also the founder of a charity called Open Society Foundations. And the link between George Soros and Oxfam India, we were talking about Oxfam a little while ago, and now we're talking about George Soros. The link is Open Society Foundations. Now, George Soros, through Open Society Foundations, pumps in huge amounts of money into NGOs across the world, like Oxfam. I'll give you a little bit of tidbit about George Soros. In 1992, he was known as the man who broke the Bank of England, because he shorted the British pound and literally collapsed the Bank of England. He did the same in 1997 with the Thai baht. He shorted the baht and he triggered the Asian financial crisis. So quite a character there.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And he is someone who has been funding these NGOs. Now, this entire expose actually brings about three big questions, and three big questions that we're asking this evening. Question number one, are some NGOs in India working as agents on behalf of foreign powers? The second big question is, how did these NGOs actually operate? And that brings us to the third one. Who are these entities who are working behind the scenes to destabilize India and essentially puncture its growth story? To answer these questions, we are now joined by Sanjay Asher. He's the senior partner at Crawford Bailey, and also joining us is Ashutosh Srivastava. And he's an advocate in the Supreme Court. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. First to you, Ashutosh, the investigation, has essentially highlighted that over 75% of the funding for 4 of these 5 NGOs actually came from foreign sources over a 5-year period. Now, do you think that this reliance on international donations obviously raises certain questions about the motivations and the influences on these NGOs?
Yes. See, first of all, any NGO who is getting any funds from foreign countries, they have to be registered under FCRA. We know it very well. And further, there has been amendment in this act from time to time. See, this act was originally in 1976. It got certain amendments in 2010 and also in 2020. Now, after this amendment, under Section 7, the NGO, if they get any foreign funds, they cannot further sub-transfer it to other NGOs for any purpose or any, for whatever purposes, even to a person or any other NGO or any entity. But here, if we see the complaint which was filed by the director of the Home Ministry, based on the recommendations and the findings of the CBDT, that is Central Board of Direct Taxes, that there has been irregular activities being conducted by this particular NGO. And accordingly, this complaint was filed in September last year and April last year, and the FIR was also registered by the CBI. And after conducting the investigation, CBI also found that there have been clear violation of sections 8, 17, 12.4 of the FCRA, which gives certain guidelines and certain prohibitions to be followed by any such entity who get any foreign funds. And accordingly, the CBI came into picture and they started doing the investigation. Now, considering the kind of allegations, if it is proven, the punishment could be even 5 years. And also, it could have certain other NGOs who might be involved into taking such certain funds. Because there are also allegations by the CBI that this particular NGO has been, even after the lapse of the FCRA certificate, were taking money through their other associates and employees. By way of commissions, they were transferring the funds, which is again in violation of sections 8 and 12.4 of FCRA. So these are serious allegations, and the main issue involved here is that these foreign entities who are transferring the funds to this particular NGO, the main purpose is to disrupt the functioning of the government and also the economy of the country. And accordingly, the actions have been taken by the CBI, and I think the strictures will also be passed, considering the seriousness of the offences being committed. So it is a clear, as I said, violation of FCRA, which has been formed by the central government for certain purposes, so that the funds are utilized in the right direction for the right purposes. And,
now,
the NGO.
Ashutosh,
Yes,
taking off from that point you made about certain powers being at play trying to disrupt development work in the country, I want to go across to Sanjay Ashar on this one. Sanjay, do you see that there is perhaps a wider agenda at play? And I say that because two of these NGOs who have come under the scanner, there is enough investigation being done into whether they tried to stall the economic and development projects that were being pursued by two particular entities. Now, this one, of course, was the Adani Group, and the other is the JSW Group. And there seems to be enough in these documents that we have had access to that seems to suggest that. How do you see it?
Yeah, I would say yes, it's the tip of the iceberg. And shortly they want to suppress and they want to stall the economic developments. And at the moment, on the basis of the facts which are placed in the media, it's just these two groups. I don't know how many other groups will also get affected. But the point is that overall, the economic development of the country is trying to be suffocated by these particular means. And so therefore, the point is absolutely right that by this mechanism, through the NGO mechanism and the subcontracting mechanism, it's trying to suffocate India's economic development, and stringent actions have to be taken against the NGOs and the sub-NGOs as well.
Mr. Ashar, this is Sandhya Ravishankar joining in. My question to you, and before I ask you my question, I want to ask my producer to pull up the graphic. It's a very interesting excerpt from the CBI FIR where, a large number of donations have come in from individual foreign donors. And look at that, that graphic on your screen. exact same amounts, many on the exact same days. And in fact, even a British citizen by the name of Banwari Lal had gifted Oxfam India a property worth 4 crore, which they sold, but declared it to be of a value of 2.46 crores. So there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. It's not just about protests. How are you looking at this? I mean, there are a lot of individuals who say that Soros is a bogey. This is all, stuff that's made up by the right wing. So how do you look at it? Do you think it's just a conspiracy theory?
It is a conspiracy theory. To my mind, further investigations needs to be done because, as you rightly pointed out, on the number of individuals and the timing and the amount which they've donated to these NGOs. Surely, as you rightly put, there is something more than meets the eye, and absolute uh, stringent actions have to be taken against these individuals as also the NGOs both. It can't just we can't be silent. We can't be silent, and surely action needs to be taken because it's the macroeconomy, it's the economic development of the country, and all of us know that India is going to be the next superpower. And in order that our economic development remains like a stunted growth, which is why all these activities are going on.
Just coming back to you on that one, Sanjay Ashar, what kind of actions do you think need to be taken further? Because as Sandhya pointed out, there's a large amount of talk about the fact that this is all conspiracy theories that are being, built up by certain people. But investigations seem to reveal that that's not the case.
True. So therefore, for example, cancellation of the licenses, whatever money they have, stop using that money which is already there in their bank account. Obviously, even the FCRA says that whatever money is still there in your bank account, in case the FCRA license is cancelled and that money which is there in the bank account has come through the foreign remittances should not be used. So the point being that not only against these institutions, Oxfam plus Life plus CISSD, or even the other NGOs which are there, to whom these Oxfam and other NGOs have given money, even probe has to be taken against them as well. And the most stringent action be taken against them, including on the office bearers of these particular entities.
Absolutely. Going back across to Ashutosh now. Ashutosh, the investigation, and you also talked about it in the beginning, points to certain serious violations of the FCRA. And I want to also highlight another issue. It talks about discrepancies in annual returns, potential misutilization of foreign funds. Do you think that these NGOs also essentially work to undermine the legal framework that is meant to regulate these NGOs in a country like India? Because we often see a lot of reports questioning why the FCRA licenses were cancelled, while people ignore the larger investigations that have been conducted.
See, I do agree that that would be the reasons for cancellation of these FCRA certifications on many of the occasions. Now, if you see that we know that the NGO must be at least 3 years old to have any FCRA certification after following the due process of law. And if they don't follow these processes, their FCRA certificates are being cancelled by the government after examining the functioning, the way they are performing. If it is not following the due process of law, then it is being cancelled. So here, and also what my learned friend just raised, the issue of selling a property at a lower value, which was gifted by a donor. So I would here, there are chances of even money laundering, because if the property is being shown to be sold at a lower price, then where is the above money going? Whether this money is being taken in cash, and this cash is also being used for certain wrongful purposes by these NGOs. So that also needs to be, I think, examined by the CBI during investigation, so that it comes to the people, as to what is happening, whether these NGOs are, which are meant to do social work in the country, are really doing that, or they are involved into some sort of, foreign partners who just want to, hinder the economy of our country and also the stability of the government. So I think it is a very, very serious issue. It is not one NGO actually to be taken into consideration. There could be many such who would be joining hands and would be doing something in those directions. So that I think needs to be verified properly. And also, as we saw that the amounts which are exactly into the Indian currency even after the transfer, that also raises a lot of questions whether this money is actually being pumped in by some people who would be having some sort of political connections and they want to raise the funds in such a way that that would also be involving further sort of money laundering, etc. So I think it's a very serious issue and it requires a proper examination and investigation, not only maybe by the CBI, but I think in due course of time, even ED will join hands in the investigation to find out if there is further violation of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act as well. So, so that I think is required to be done further by the central government.
Ashutosh, I think we all agree that action and firm action must be taken. But my question is this. Now, the person who was heading Oxfam India at the time, throughout this period, Amitabh Beher, he has fled the country. There are reports that he is in Nairobi. Of course, these have not been confirmed. But he is definitely not in India. As far as the Center for Policy Research goes, that is another mega NGO which has been doing similar things and funding protests across the country. You have a Salil Shetty, who was the vice president of Open Society Foundations, and he was the person who was, the key party in terms of routing money from Open Society Foundations to people like Amitabh Beher of Oxfam. Now, is it enough to just look at this as an FCRA issue? Should we not be going after these people? And I don't mean it as a witch hunt, but definitely look into it as an investigation, find out if there's wrongdoing and question them before they flee the country.
Absolutely. As you rightly said, this is what I said. It is not only the violation of FCRA, it could also be further violation of PMLA. And also, I think certain sections of the new law, BNS, will also be applied here. And if they have fled the country, we have extradition treaties with many of the countries. And the CBI may take further help of, Interpol, and even the blue corner notice or red corner notice can be issued. And the matter can be taken to the court so that they can be brought back to India for further, adjudication of the matter, so that this can be, can become a deterrence for such other organizations if they are not actually acting for the purpose for which they were given permissions to act in the country and perform as NGO for social work. If they are not doing social work and they are doing something else, then the actions are required to be taken under the provisions of law which are already existent in our country. I'm not saying that all NGOs would be doing like that. There are many such NGOs who are really doing good for the country, for the people, and for the social welfare of the country. So those are obviously for the reasons they have been formed, they are performing as per the rules. But whoever are not doing for whatever purpose they were, required to be formed, then the actions have to be taken. There are laws which we already have, and we don't need anything further or any, framing of any further laws. And we have been very much diligent in, making or amending laws from time to time, depending on the on different sorts of crimes and the ways the money has been, being misutilized for wrong purposes. So I think these are sufficient for the CBI to do further investigation and to implicate further provisions of laws and to take help of the other investigating agencies who are experts into different fields along with CBI to come to a proper conclusion so that people understand as to what is happening in the country and whether the NGOs are really performing their work properly or they are involved or they have just tried to form NGO on a pretext of doing something else.
Absolutely, and we agree with you when you say, there are a lot of NGOs who are doing great work in India. One final question to you, Sanjay Ashar. Now, there is an allegation that Oxfam India actually supported Oxfam Australia to push to stop mining by the Adani Group. Now, there is also an allegation that Oxfam India has had direct interest towards delisting Adani ports. Now, something like this, goes a long way in destabilizing not just the Adani Group, which at this point in time happens to be one of the biggest groups in the country. So, in a sense, by extension, it also, works against the Indian economy. Your comments?
Absolutely, it is acting against the progress of the Indian economy and against the Indian economy. Adani is just one example. Because it is growing, because it is doing good work on infrastructure and for the development of economy, and it is spending tons and tons of money and huge amount of money for the purpose of economic development. So surely Oxfam India, Oxfam Australia are all in that sense conspiring in order to act against the economic development. And one example is, or two examples are Adani Group and JSW Group, which are doing great work as far as the economic development is concerned.
Absolutely.
And that also has to be further investigated.
Oh, yes. And, not just investigations, all of this should reach its, reach a conclusion. That is at least the intent of these investigations. Ashutosh as well as Sanjay and Sandhya, to you as well. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us on The Big Story this evening. Well, that's all we have time for on The Big Story on NDTV Profit. Thank you very much for joining in. But news and updates continue, so stay with us.